DOST Secretary Boy Dela Peña. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Secretary Boy.
Secretary, magandang umaga, Sec Martin and Yusek Ignacio.
Napakalaga po ng science and technology sa mga panahong ito. Gayon din po ang research and development para mahanap ang solusyon o gamot sa COVID-19. How is the local R&D faring in the country as of now, spearheaded by the Department of Science and Technology?
Well, we are still in the stage wherein we are trying some natural products that can be therapeutics or can speed up the recovery of our COVID-19 patients. I think I've mentioned this before. We have been trying VCO in 2 locations. We have started already the formulations that will be tested initially in vitro for our tawa-tawa and lagundi, which has been known cures for other viral-related diseases. And we are, of course, now doing our negotiations for the collaboration in vaccine trials with at least 4 institutions, 2 coming from China and 2 coming from Chinese Taipei. It can increase to 5. And of course, we have already started the studies related to virology, not necessarily or not exclusively for COVID-19 alone, but for other viruses, because this is already a part of our preparations for the setting up of a Virology Science Institute of the Philippines, which we proposed will be created by legislation.
Ang Philippine Textile Research Institute started its mass production of a reusable, washable, and rewearable o rewear masks para sa ating mga frontliners. How far are we in the production? At ito ba ay nagagamit ng mga frontliners natin?
Opo, actually the main beneficiary of the mass production of our rewearable, reusable, rewashable mask is really the frontliners, the health workers, and those of the checkpoints and other categories of frontliners. So I reported last week that we are still in the 10,000 per week production. Because we are still looking for more operators which will be doing the sewing, but we expect that the volume will go to about 50,000 per week by the end of June. Our target production initially is 500,000. We have already earmarked half of it for the frontliners in cooperation with the task force that is taking charge of logistics, and of course the rest that we will produce will be part of the stockpiling of inventory of masks by the Philippine government. The benefit from this mask is that, as I mentioned, reusable, rewearable, and we have made sure that it passes the requirements. First of all, it requires water repellency of the textile material, and this is being done by applying a certain compound, and of course we are preparing the use of natural textile like cotton. So most of the materials that we are using now are donations from companies in the Philippines, and in fact even the materials that we have used for the compounds were also donated. So we are looking now for more collaborators who will be doing the sewing. Most of our production now is coming from the sewers of Taytay and also from Cavite, and we expect to have more collaborators for this.
Isa po sa priority project ngayon ng DOST ay ang Gen Amplify Coronavirus 2019 RT-PCR test kits. distributed by the group of Dr. Raul Destura. Ano na po ang update dito at ilan po yung daily production? Saan sa ang ospital nakakarating ang test kits na ito at gaano po daw ito ka-accurate?
Lilinawin ko lamang po na nagkaroon po tayo ng problema dahil yung una pong imported na raw material ay nagkaroon ng contamination. So yan po ginamit at pinalitan naman po ng ating supplier. Actually hindi lang naman ang Pilipinas ang naapektuhan, ang daming sinuplayan. So when the new materials came in, ni-require na naman uli ng bagong validation through our ITM and eventually FDA. So while in Manila Health Tech, the promised 6,000 tests, it is waiting for a clearance again from FDA, another round of clearance because of the new shipment that of materials that we have. But the production itself is hitting 8,000 tests per day.
Okay, Secretary. DOST has also been collaborating with other agencies, Secretary, gaya po ng Presidential Assistant for OFW Affairs para po bigyan ng assistance package ang ating mga overseas Filipino workers at kanilang pamilya para po doon sa tinatawag na technology-based enterprises. Please tell us more about this po.
Oo. Well, we are of course looking after the welfare of our OFWs, and therefore we package a project that is specifically intended for them, and this is really for starting new enterprises which are technology-based. When I say technology-based, it can take a wide range. It can be, for example, in food processing, it can be in metalworking or fabrication, it can be in electronics, it can be in furniture and other housewares. It can even be in the field of agriculture, and of course they can also do services because many of our OFWs have gained certain technical and professional expertise abroad. We have some examples already of those that we have helped in the past, but now we are putting up a program specifically for this. So for example, there were those who formerly were working as seafarers, and now they are into food processing, into furniture making, and others have formed their own engineering design services companies. So these are engineers who work abroad, and when they came back, they set up their own professional services company. I have known a good example who was really who learned very good automation skills when he was still there, and he put up a startup here. Now they employ more than 200 people in the engineering company. So our assistance will be in two phases. One is really prepare them, first give them some kind of a test for entrepreneurial competencies, and then give them some training on entrepreneurship, and then help them in identifying which enterprise they want to enter into. And in this particular aspect, we will give them access to our laboratories, to our pilot plants at DOST, and also with our network organizations and companies. And then we have a pool of advisors that will help them until they come up with a good business plan. From there, we can go into the second phase where financing will already be involved. But when we talk of financing, it's not only for the purchase of equipment, but it will be including those that are involved, for example, in the product development phase, in the laboratory testing phase, in getting, for example, whatever technology licenses are needed to be taken in. And so initially we are testing it at the NCR region, at the National Capital Region, but we will soon move out to the provinces. So this is both a support for our OFWs and also some kind of a support to our Balik probinsya, because we have many OFWs that are going home to their respective home provinces.
Bukod po dito ay may assistance din ginagawa ang DOST para sa mga MSME sa pamagitan ng inyong set-up program. What exactly is this program? At anong klaseng assistance ang ibinibigay ng DOST sa mga MSME?
Well, it is a long-running program. It has been in existence since 2003, and it has been one of the most popular programs that we have. Set up means Small Enterprises Technology Upgrading Program. And here, again, it is a package of assistance to existing firms. It should be at least a 3-year-old firm that has been in existence. And again, it can cover a wide range of technology-based businesses, as I mentioned earlier. Now, but the focus of our assistance really is to help them identify how they can improve their productivity, their quality, and their capacity. So most of the interventions here are really going into the acquisition of equipment for better technology, for expansion, and also for good quality. And the assistance that we give is that we enable them to procure the needed hardware and also the software that accompanies them so that they can use this in their firms. And we give them, actually, we call this an advance, because the equipment that are purchased still belong to the DOST until they have repaid without interest the amount that we advance for this. So it's not a loan, it's some kind of a lease purchase arrangement, but with no interest. We give them a 1-year grace period before they start their payments, and they do this on a monthly basis, giving them an allowance of 3 years. It can be a little more than 3 years if the amount involved is much bigger. But we have a very, very high collection rate in this case. Of course, during the COVID-19, we had to give them a further grace period, actually a moratorium on payments, total of 5 months moratorium.
Isa sa focus projects ng pamahalaan bilang long-term solution para tugunan ng high population density sa Metro Manila ang Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program, at ang DOST, NEDA at UP Foundation ay meron pong plano patungkol dito, itong New Growth Center Development Model. What exactly is this at paano po ito makakatulong sa ating mga kababayan?
Well, it started 2 years ago. I have been attending meetings at NEDA, particularly in support of the passage of the Land Use Act. And they always talk about comprehensive land use planning. And I thought that DOST can contribute. I did not announce this to them, but at DOST we commissioned a research, actually a model development that was done by the Planades Foundation, which is affiliated to the UP School of Urban and Regional Planning. So they have been working on this, and they were about to finish and to submit the model to us. It's just the training component that has been lacking, and a few data that they need to give us, maybe to the tune of remaining 10%. So we thought that this can be used in the Balik Probinsya program. And true enough, the model that they have focuses on identifying the so-called drivers of growth in our provinces. So starting with 18 independent variables, they did the correlation and found out that there were 9 drivers of growth in the provinces. It can be the era, it can be the nearness to airports and seaports, it can be the closeness to economic zones, etc. And so testing the model, they used this to identify 20 new growth centers. When we talk of new growth centers, it's really a mix of agro-industrial development. And these top 20 provinces have been identified. And then they also have a portion in the model where they can project the increase in population in these newly growing centers. And so they projected the growth in population in those 20 provinces that they have identified to the model, and tested or validated the actual increase in population versus the actual versus the predicted. And so this now is the basis for forecasting the number of households that will be going, or the increase in the number of households that will require new housing, okay? And therefore, this will be a good instrument, particularly for our housing agencies, to plan for, and of course to the LGUs, to plan for the housing requirements in their newly urbanizing areas. But on top of this, the model also can help in simulating the direction or the growth in the other aspects, like in terms of the transportation requirements, in terms of the industrial zone locations, or the industrial growth locations, and other areas. So they came up with the testing of this model in the #1 province in the top 20 that was the result of the model testing, and it was actually the province of Cebu. So they tried it, and we have now outputs for the province of Cebu. When I presented this to NEDA, Acting Secretary Carl Chua, he was hoping that we can produce all the results for all the 20 provinces. But I said that the contract between us and the Planades group was only to come up with the model, to test it in one particular province, and also to conduct the training for LGUs who want to avail of this model, and also to come up with the manuals or the guidelines that will be needed. So we will be scheduling some kind of a webinar, a launching, so that LGUs who would like to use the model, this is the newly growing urban development model, can be given training on the use of it. And the DOST will be on the assist, particularly through our offices.
Secretary, mainit na usapin din po sa education sector ang learning delivery system sa oras po na magsimula na ang academic year 2020-2021. Ano po yung adjustment na gagawin naman ng Philippine Science High School to comply to the AITF guidelines po?
Well, we of course assume the two scenarios depending on the decision of IATF. One is if they will not yet allow face-to-face classes, and therefore this will all be done through the use of distance learning materials, both electronic and printed, because there are also students who may be living in remote areas, and therefore we are not assured that there is connectivity in their areas. The problem of using the equipment, the computer, the laptop, can be solved. We can provide those who do not have yet, but this is actually a relatively small percentage at this point. But those where the connectivity is difficult, then we will be forced to produce or to use printed materials, and we will make sure that this will be delivered to their specific locations. Now, if there will be a decision to allow face-to-face interaction already, or face-to-face classes at some point in time, then we will go to blended learning. And this is a combination of the face-to-face learning in the classrooms and the distance learning mode. Yung face-to-face will be the usual learning in the classroom mode, but the distance learning is as I have described. And since we are required to do physical distancing in the classrooms also, then the capacity that the classrooms that we have, for example, it is good for 30. We can only allow 15 students to come, and therefore they will be alternating in cycles. So if it's a two-week cycle, so 2 weeks, the students, half of the students, or 50%, will go to school, and half will be doing distance learning. If circumstances or the situations dictate that the environment will, shall we say, it will be better for us to do a 1-month cycle, then we will do that. So the monitoring and testing of students will also be done online, monitoring and of course the performance testing. So we are prepared for it. The teachers are now preparing their materials. The parents are being consulted because the cycle will somehow also depend on the suggestions coming from our parents. So we are prepared for both decisions. One, where there will be no face-to-face classes yet, and second, if they will allow, and we just have to comply with the distancing second camp to class. For the main campus, we cannot even reach 50%. It will be only 1/3 or 33% who will be coming at one time.
Opo, Secretary, makikibalita na rin po kami doon sa Virgin Coconut Oil Clinical Trial na sinasabing makakatulong daw po na makapagpabili sa pagpapagaling sa mga COVID-19 patient. Kumusta na po to at ano na po ang update natin dito?
Well, dalawa po yung location natin. Ang good news, yung pong sa PGH, which is for moderate and severe cases, ay inapruban na finally ng Ethics Board ng UP Manila. So I am just waiting for the report that they have already started. Wala pong problema sa number of patients sa PGH. No? Kaya ang hinintay lang natin ay yung go signal from the Ethics Board. And the period for giving the BCO in PGH is only 14 days to test whether it has a good effect on the patient. So as I have indicated earlier, we are planning, or they are planning for 100 patients. Half will be on BCO and half will not be given BCO, so for comparison purposes. Now, the one that we are contacting in Santa Rosa, while it has started already almost a month ago, the arrival of patients is relatively slow. Okay, and so we cannot still meet the 90 recommended number of patients to be enrolled. And what we did was to include two other shall we say hospitals or centers who have patients, and fortunately Medical City has set up just 2 weeks ago a facility in Santa Rosa, and they agreed that they will participate. And then also the quarantine center of Santa Rosa will also be a source of additional patients. This is for the case na hindi sila masyadong severe. Ito yung mga mild pa lang at saka yung tinatawag nating
Alright. Naputol. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagpapaunlak, Secretary Boy Dela Peña ng DOST. Mabuhay po kayo.